The Spirit troubled the waters, and new life erupted forth. Friends, new life is eruption. It isn't peaceful. It isn't calm. It breaks through. Seeds crack as shoots burst forth from them. Dirt is shoved aside as plants grow and reach for the light. Human life is born amidst pain and blood and water. We are troubled. We live in troubled times. And maybe that trouble is the Spirit. Maybe it is the Spirit that is moving and shaking and wandering and cracking open our illusions and prejudices, exposing our insides so that new life can burst forth. The chaos that we see around us, that's how change happens. It's not how we want change to happen, but it is how change happens. Martin Luther King, whether he liked it or not, lived in a world with Malcolm X and Huey Long. Austin Channing Brown, I've referred to her in the past. She wrote the amazing book, I'm Still Here, Being Black in a White World. She reminded those of us who follow her that there was no one kind of troubling the waters that brought about the changes of the civil rights movement. No matter how we smooth over our history, how we like to refer to Martin Luther King and Gandhi as if they did not plan and strategize and disrupt the world around them, no matter how much we like to just look at the best parts of the history or whatever we think those best parts are, the reality is change is troubling. It is uncomfortable. The weeds of hate and injustice, of prejudice and racism, they must be pushed aside, plucked out, for new life to erupt forth. But the reality is those weeds, they resist. They resist change. They resist new life. They resist it because it is uncomfortable. New life stretches us. Growing pains never cease in the reign of God. They never stop. And not everybody wants to suffer those pains. Not everybody wants their life disrupted, erupted, and changed. But they never cease because we are always called to be more kind, to be more loving, more faithful, more prophetic, more joyful, more sad, more hopeful. New life, it is beautiful. What comes forth never looks like it did at the beginning. Who looks at a small, dark seed and seeds a sunflower? Who looks at a tadpole and sees a beautiful 6'6" Black man? Birth may happen in blood and pain and water, but it is beautiful and it is full of joy. It is beautiful when we all live together in unity, and it is beautiful when we all struggle to create a world where that unity is possible. Hope, it is beautiful. The snippets of faith and love we have all been privileged to see, they are beautiful. We are allowed to grieve. We are allowed to grieve pandemic, the loss of friends and family and connection and communion. We are allowed to grieve and to be angry at a world where it is dangerous to be black or brown. Where walking down the street and being black or brown is simply unsafe, not because you have done anything. And frankly, let me be clear, even if you had done something, that isn't the issue. It doesn't matter if the people who have been killed by police officers who are black or brown, it doesn't matter if they were criminals. It doesn't matter if they have a record. It doesn't matter if they screwed up at some point in their lifetime. What matters is that they were killed because they looked wrong. And that is wrong. There's no justifying it. There is no explaining it. It is simply wrong. And we should grieve. We should be angry. And we should not ever judge others for their grief and their anger. For challenging, for erupting a world where normal is terrible. We are allowed to grieve, and the Spirit, it grieves with us. It troubles, it erupts, it is violent. The prophet Joel understood that. When the Spirit comes, things change, and resistance, both by those of us who are full of love and faith, or at least try to be, and those of us who are committed to maintaining the structures that preserve our privilege, resistance happens because the Spirit erupts new life in us. We are allowed to grieve and to be fearful, to wait and pray in our rooms, in our upper rooms, like the disciples did. We are allowed to wait for somebody to accompany us, for somebody to walk with us, for somebody to speak to us. We are allowed to wait for somebody to speak to us on the behalf of God, who wants a world full of justice and mercy and peace. And it is that Spirit that comes. It is that Spirit that troubles the waters of our contentment, of our complacency, the waters of our grief and of our sadness and of our despair. The Spirit comes and troubles those waters of grief and sadness and despair and anger, because that is not the life to which we are called. It is not the life into which each one of us, beautiful images of God, are created to be. It is a Spirit that advocates to us for the presence of God in us and amidst us and around us. It is a Spirit that advocates to us to remind us that God is with us, whether we are in a church building or all in our homes. The Spirit does not care. The Spirit only cares that we know that we are made of God. We are filled with the breath of God. And when that breath is choked out of us, the Spirit will breathe through us and in us. The Spirit breathes new life into the world around us. We are filled with that breath of life, and we have no control over whether that breath of life continues, whether that breath of life brings us to a noble old age, surrounded by family and children, or whether that breath of life is cut off unjustly, wrongly, by a world that hates us. We do not have control of that. What we have is the promise that God continues to breathe in us and through us as a community, as a people called together, filled with gifts given by God, each of us unique, creative, a beautiful image of God, each one of us called to be filled with the breath of Spirit, to go out to trouble the waters, to trouble the world, all for the common good of those around us. May it be so. Amen.